Yeah, and I'm a big believer in something I call R&D.
Yeah,
Most people think of it as research and development. For me, it's rip off and duplicate. There are, I would say from a demand marketing perspective, there are maybe 5% of the companies out there do it really well. Figure out who those 5% are, right? And I buy plane tickets. I will do whatever it takes to get my team in front of those people. We've flown out to Marketo, to Salesforce, to LinkedIn, SalesLoft, Outreach, all of those companies that do demand marketing really well. We don't have to create the wheel. Somebody else has already created it. Get really good at one channel. And it's rare where you find a marketer who can be really good at multiple channels. When I have someone working in Google, right, search
yeah.
engine marketing, I get them certified in Google. If they're working on intent, I get them certified in our intent channels, and that takes a lot of time. If you want to be good at understanding a channel and making sure that it works, it's not just understanding the channel, it's also understanding lead management, lead routing, how those routes route to teams, how you set other teams up for success.
Hey there, welcome to this week's episode of The Freedom Experience. I'm your host, John Moncrief. And if you're struggling with marketing, if it feels like your marketing function is just a money pit, then this episode's for you. So many business owners struggle with trying to figure out how to get this right. The dream is to have a slot machine where you drop in $1, you pull the lever, the cherries line up, and all the money pours out, like time after time. Unfortunately, the reality is more like sitting at that slot machine in the casino, dropping $1 after another into the machine, pulling the lever, and absolutely nothing lines up. And you walk out of the casino, I don't know, $500, $1,000, $10,000 out of pocket. So that's why I've brought on Josh Leatherman to come onto the show. I've asked Josh Leatherman to come onto the show today. Josh is the Chief Marketing Officer at Service Express, and he's played a critical role in taking the company from 30 million in revenue to over 350 million in revenue. I mean, it's a staggering growth trajectory that didn't happen by accident. Joshua built a world-class marketing function. He aligned sales and marketing with a data-driven, systematic approach that fuels their consistent and scalable growth. So in today's conversation, we cover three sort of big themes. The first is scaling from 30 to 350 million and talking to Josh about how he did that, how Service Express evolved from a regional player to an international company with a winning go-to-market strategy. We also look at building a high-performing marketing team and what that takes, the key hires, the accountability structures, and the fail-fast culture that has driven results at Service Express. And then we talk about how Josh would approach this now. There's so many changes in front of us, so much going on in the market. AI, Service Express is a technology business. Marketing is a fast-moving, fast-paced kind of environment. So I talked to Josh about how he would start over if he had to start over now. And I think his insights could save you years of trial and error. So this is going to be, or this is a great episode. Jump in, listen. But before we go on, one more thing. Like, if you enjoy this episode, just take a second to follow the show, leave a review on your favorite podcast platform. It really helps us to reach more business owners and continue to bring these fantastic conversations to you. And I really hope they make a fantastic impact. So let's dive in. Josh, super excited to have you on today. Thanks very much for coming on. And welcome to the show.
Thanks. Good to be on. Appreciate you having me.
So I thought to start, just to give the listeners a bit of context, like where you came from and in joining ServiceNow, and what ServiceNow is all about as a business.
Yeah, actually, we're Service Express. ServiceNow. That's okay. We get mistaken for ServiceNow a lot because we are ServiceNow and Service Express are both in the IT space, right? We both serve IT customers, and ServiceNow is a great company, but Service Express is as well. Service Express is a data center maintenance company, and we've expanded our portfolio of products. So we just have a lot of different services that make IT infrastructure buyers more effective in the data center. So we do third-party maintenance services, we do managed infrastructure services, and we do hardware sales. And our primary buyer is mid to enterprise sized organizations who work with data center infrastructure, right? And in an era of big data, it's a great space to be in. And now with AI, right, it requiring additional hardware and storage and servers and compute power, we sit squarely in that space, and we help to ensure that our customers don't go, their data centers don't go down. And if they do have an issue, we've got engineers who go on site and bring them back online. So it's a good space to be in.
And you're serving businesses of all sizes. So somebody wants to put their servers into or host their applications in an environment, that's really kind of what they're doing with you.
Yeah, they do some of that with us on the managed infrastructure side. But what happens with many of our customers is they buy great servers and storage units, right? IBM, HP, Dell, EMC, they make great servers, right?
Got
And
it.
what they do is typically they will offer service, right, with them, kind of a warranty with them for 2 to 3 years. But that equipment is so good, it's actually the useful life for it is 7 to 10 years.
Wow. Okay.
And so what we do is we take over after 2 to 3 years, we take over that service contract, and we're able to increase service levels, but we're also able to help our customers be better stewards of the environment. Like I don't upgrade my iPhone every year. I keep it for a few years because iPhones are great, and I want to be a better steward of the
Yeah.
environment. We help our customers extend the life of their hardware, and it's good hardware. And then we offer things like predictive analytics and solutions that help them understand before a server goes down. We're able to tell them, hey, there's an issue here, and we're able to prevent downtime by helping them understand that there are some signals within the infrastructure environment that may be problematic for them.
Okay. And you're a global operation. You have
Yep.
operations in the US. I think I saw the UK, I suppose, into
Yeah.
Europe. Cool.
Global, yeah. Our headquarters are here in Grand Rapids, Michigan. We have a regional one in Denver, and then of course we are over in London, but we service all over the world.
Okay. And you had a very unconventional kind of entry into Service Express
Yeah,
and came from an operational background, right? Like,
yeah.
I'm really curious about how that came to be and how that helped you coming into this CMO role.
Yeah, so I was in operations for 12 or 13 years with a large media company, and a couple of roles. One was customer success, kind of a customer service type role, and then also operations. Now, what my wife and I did on the side is we got into marketing, kind of a boutique marketing company. We started that a few years before I got into
Okay.
Service Express. I knew in the political climate, I knew a judge who was running for office. And here's just kind of a unique story about judges who are sometimes elected here in the States is when you have an incumbent judge on a ballot, they enjoy almost 100% reelection rate because no one knows. It shows as incumbent, but nobody knows if their ideology is Democrat or Republican,
Okay.
right? And so I knew a judge who I agreed with his values, and he asked me to run his campaign. And so I thought, we'll give it a shot. And we were able to get him elected by through marketing, through targeted marketing. We looked at the entire population that he was running, where he was running. We were able to identify those whose values aligned with him, and then we were able to create some targeted marketing. We would kind of profile those voters and create some targeted marketing that spoke to them and help them understand that, hey, this judge who is running against an incumbent judge actually believes more and aligns with your beliefs than this other judge. And so we were able to get him elected. And that kind of got me into marketing. I first started getting into the space of getting candidates elected for office. And this goes back to when SurveyMonkey and MailChimp and some of
Yeah.
these first kind of like marketing tools where you could do some really surgical targeted marketing and starting to profile people. I was just fascinated by that. And so just on the side, I started getting into that and learning these tools and learning how they could start to profile people and then change their minds a little bit.
So that was what, back in about 2012, 2014, somewhere in that space, I guess.
No, this would have
Or was
been
it?
back in like 2008 to
Ah, wow. Okay.
2011.
Yeah.
2011.
Okay. MailChimp was just starting to take off back
Yeah,
then. Got it.
yeah.
Okay. And so you take a job at a 30 million, or a
hmm
company that's at 30 million in revenue, and they ask you to come in as a CMO, or you presumably applied for the role. How did you land up taking the role?
Yeah, well, we have the CEO at the time, who's still the CEO now, Ron Elvesteffer. He had this kind of motto: hire the will, teach the skill.
Okay.
He was looking for a couple of things. One, he was looking for somebody who was data driven and not just kind of a creative brand marketer. He was looking for somebody who had some passion and fire in the belly, curious, somebody who is a learner, and somebody who could grow as the marketing discipline grew. And so he saw that in me because I created a business, my own business on the side. I was teaching myself many of the new tools that were coming out for marketers. But then he was also looking for somebody who would help plug in with a sales organization and start to really deliver leads and ultimately pipeline for the sales team, because technology at that time was starting to come out that would just prevent the sales team from getting people on the phone. Technology was blocking their ability to get emails
Yeah.
through. As fast as sales and marketing start to get new things out there, new technologies to kind of interrupt or disrupt a buyer's life, the buyer is able to bring in technology that kind of blocks all that
The
noise, right?
barriers come up,
Kind of,
right?
yeah, it's kind of a game where you're constantly trying to stay ahead, right?
Yeah.
And so he was looking for that, and he was looking for somebody a little more unconventional, and who had some fire in the belly, and was not. He had interviewed a bunch of kind of creative and brand marketers, and that was just not what he was looking for at the time.
So that was a good move on his part. I mean, working with your team and building your team, and I imagine the rest of the leadership team, you ultimately have taken the business from where it was sitting at around 30 million to, I think the last I heard, somewhere around 350 odd million, or
Yeah,
north of
yeah, I'd say
350 million.
it was a good gamble, and it certainly has paid off for us. I joined when we were about 30 million in revenue. We're north of 350 million now. As we mentioned at the top of the show, we are nationwide, and we've built a very strong go-to-market function here. We've really specialized teams. We have a revenue operations team that focuses on identifying our total addressable market, right? In North America, for example, we know we've got 80,000 companies in our total addressable market, but we also look at characteristics that help us understand, okay, of the 80,000, what's a highly addressable market? Where do we want to put our resources? And so a revenue operations team owns, with marketing, kind of figuring out what that highly addressable market is. And then we have a demand marketing team that looks at all of that, and we design campaigns that we don't want to waste resources and get in front of companies who are not qualified. And so the team really focuses on marketing channels that get us in front of qualified companies, but also kind of qualified buyers at the company. So that's at the top of the funnel. Then we're able to deliver marketing qualified leads to our inbound sales development team, which is such a critical function at any company that wants to scale kind of this go-to-market motion, this function, an inbound sales dev team who can field those leads, reach out to the buyer right away, and then schedule meetings for the sales team, critical. And then, of course, we have our sales team who is responsible for then qualifying and selling that deal. So everybody knows their role at Service Express.
So it's going back to what you were saying about the founder of the business and hiring you, and to this team that you've put together. I think the way you put it was hire the will and build the skill. Was that how
Yeah.
you phrase?
Hire the will, teach the skill. Yep.
Teach the skill.
Yep.
And you didn't come in and just kind of create that team. I think you've talked about failing failing. He encouraged you to fail faster,
Yeah.
but to figure it out. And you had to figure out along the way. And I think there were times where you said you're surprised that he hadn't let you go or fired you. There's obviously a lot of faith, or I guess the whole company's purpose is around people and this faith in finding the right people and
Yeah.
the will to help them to grow.
Yeah, I think an appetite, not just an appetite, but a culture that encourages individuals, especially in marketing, where you have so much marketing technology, you have so many different channels that you can try and test out.
Yeah,
A culture that encourages people to try small, right?
yeah,
Try small experiments, figure out what works. We encourage people to have kind of a hypothesis, right? Don't make a decision, have a hypothesis and then test it. And that's so important in marketing. And then have a lot of failures. We want to see a lot of small experiments fail because we know failure is the way marketers learn, right? And we celebrate that. But as soon as you find that one thing that works, it may be 1 out of 10. As soon as you find that one thing that works, it can be quite a material win for the organization and marketing in particular, because you can scale that out to the
yeah.
total addressable market. And so the quicker we can fail and figure out what doesn't work, the quicker we get to the one thing that does work and we can start to scale it out. And because we've done that, we have a half a dozen different marketing channels that we know will consistently produce the right number of marketing qualified leads, that will lead to the right number of meetings, that will lead to the right number of sales qualified opportunities, that will lead to the right amount of deals won at Service Express. It's given us a very predictable way of building both pipeline and revenue.
I'm kind of curious about how you balance the test or this running those small tests with kind of random acts of marketing where
Mm.
marketers want to go out there and try the latest trend fad, whatever's going on. And how do you strike that balance?
Yeah, I think first of all, having teams surrounded, right, like not relying on one individual to make those calls. We have the revenue operations, which is such a critical function, or some teams call it marketing operations. But having an operational team where you have kind of some scientists, right? Some
Yeah,
people who are left brain and they're looking at the numbers and they are a great way to understand, whether you're in sales or marketing, what is truly moving the needle and what isn't. And sometimes something doesn't move the needle, but if you make a tweak, it would. And this team is really good at coming in and saying, hey, if we bring this tool in and we route the lead to this tool, or we move this information to this tool, because right now, Mark, the danger for marketing teams is they're so many are campaign driven,
yeah,
right? Because you think of like 2010 to 2020, that's what marketing teams were. They were campaign driven. Some campaigns succeeded, some didn't. Now, really good marketers are system driven. And it requires a number of systems, from a CRM to marketing automation to an account-based marketing tool to Google. You've got 24 different tools in your MarTech stack that have to work together.
yeah.
And you've got several teams who have to be able to get the handoff and have accountability, right? And do the right thing with that lead. And having that marketing operations or that revenue operations team there to advise on what's working and what's not, but also how we could make it work or make it work better, is such a critical function for any marketing organization.
So that Rev Ops team sits between sales and marketing. They're really taking a very objective look at what's going on in the market, in
Yeah.
that total addressable market. So that TAM
Yeah.
for the listeners who are listening in, but taking a look at that market, what's really there, and kind of validating what marketers would typically say, oh, a huge opportunity over there, or sales, or those kind of opportunistic campaigns or views. And they're also acting as, I think you refer to it as the Switzerland sort of,
Yeah.
or Switzerland between sales and marketing, because these two teams are so difficult to get aligned, aren't they?
The age old divide, there's and it shouldn't be this way because everyone is after the same thing, revenue, right?
Yeah.
Everyone's after the same thing, revenue. But there's an age old divide between sales and marketing. There just is. Marketing delivers leads. Sales says these aren't good. Marketing saying you're not following up on the leads. And what happens is there's dysfunction in the organization because you have two teams who are really focused on the same thing, butting heads over how we're going to do it. And I love just calling RevOps Switzerland because Switzerland, where you're at, their foreign policy is kind of perpetual neutrality, right?
Yeah.
Switzerland does not participate in armed conflict or in military alliances. It was a policy that was formally recognized, I think, at the Congress of Vienna
Yeah.
in the 1800s after Napoleon's defeat. It was decided that Switzerland would serve as a buffer zone between kind of these rival nations. And in exchange, for Switzerland not taking sides in wars, other countries would not fight on Swiss territory. And so you think about it, sales and marketing get into these rivalries where we want to fight, right? But if you have an organization, a function between the two of them, taking an objective look, right? If sales is saying this lead is not qualified, revenue operations role is to gain agreement on what a qualified lead looks like, right? And if we all agree on that, revenue operations can then provide an objective look on whether something is qualified or not. And where the teams play when a lead comes in, because there has to be a systematic accountability with how marketing handles the top of the funnel and systematic accountability within the CRM and within the marketing automation, all the tools that we use, systematic accountability with how sales uses it. And each team has one obligation. If you think of that marketing or that sales funnel, right? Top of
Yeah.
funnel, you have a bunch of people. You're working people through the bottom of the funnel until we sell them. Every team has one mandate, one remit, and that is to move a prospect down the funnel. There can be no stasis within the funnel, no stagnation. As soon as a buyer gets stuck somewhere, we either move them down or we move them back up, right? But we've got to keep moving them. And revenue operations is the team that provides an objective window or lens by which the organization looks at what is working and what's not, and who's right and who's wrong.
Yeah, I love that. I think that was one of the biggest takeaways for me listening to you the first time I did is the putting revenue ops in between these two teams and just kind of, as you say, Switzerland in between them or bridging that gap. But I'm also really interested in when we're talking about the funnel. So we're talking about a typical funnel, and then there's layers in that funnel. You're having an individual accountable at each layer of that funnel to move things along.
Yeah.
Although there might be multiple parties responsible, there's somebody at each kind of layer of that funnel.
Yeah, that's
Moving.
exactly right. That's exactly right. What we have seen is, have you heard of RACI, which
Yes.
stands
Yeah.
for responsible, accountable, consulted, informed? What we've seen is oftentimes we paint a pretty picture of where marketing comes in and where sales comes in, but we don't, within the system, we actually don't have people who are accountable for each of those stages. And so we believe in assigning accountability. We believe that we need to understand which team is accountable for an account at this stage and who's responsible, right? So when you think of like the top of the funnel, marketing is accountable there. We're accountable for, we've got these 80,000 in North America, 80,000 accounts who are in our total addressable market, who are not customers yet. Marketing is accountable for finding them at any given time, depending on your industry. 5 to 8% of this total addressable market is actually looking for a solution,
Yeah.
right? The rest aren't, but you can still do, there's things you can do with them. But 5 to 8%, like our obligation is to go find those people who, typically 80% of the buying journey is done by the time they get in front of a sales rep, and you better hope it's your sales rep. Well, marketing's job is to get in front of them while they're online searching, and we can do that through behavioral intent, right? There's some resources we can see what accounts are searching and how they're engaging with content. And so marketing is accountable there. As soon as we bring them into the funnel, we hand them over to sales dev, and sales dev then becomes accountable there. Marketing is still responsible, We still have an obligation to help nurture them and provide content and all of that. But sales dev is accountable, and sales dev's job then is to schedule a meeting with our outside sales team. As soon as they do that, they come off the field, and sales is accountable, but marketing is still
Still
responsible.
responsible.
We
Yeah.
still have an obligation, but now it's in sales hands, and they have service level agreements so that to move that down the funnel. And if they can't do that, again, we recycle them, we bring them back up where marketing can nurture and provide more, and then we become accountable again. So I'm a big believer in making sure we understand who is accountable with an account. And there is no account in our database where we do not have a team accountable for it.
Gotcha. Okay. So every single account sitting in the database, there's a whole team is looking after them. It's like a pod that's looking after that account.
Yep,
Got it.
exactly.
Okay.
Yeah.
See, you come in, you step in as a CMO, and you've got to start building your team, putting your team together. What are some of the things you're looking for in a high performing team as you build it out?
You mentioned it earlier. I'm a big believer in Patrick Lencioni's ideal team player, right?
Yeah.
Humble, hungry, smart. We need people who are humble. They're willing to learn, and they're willing to learn from others. Uh, uh, they're smart. They know how to work with other individuals. People want to work with them. Marketing can't operate in a silo. It has to build relationships with sales development, with the sales team, with customer success, with finance, with IT. We have to be smart with our relationships, and they have to be hungry. I can't tell you how many marketers come in and they think this is the way we've always done it, and so this is the play I'm going to run. Uh, there are tools that we used 4 years ago that we don't use today. There are marketing channels we used a few years ago that we don't use today. There are tools that are coming out now that we're going to have to AI agents that we need to learn and use now because they're going to be a big part of our business in 12 to 18 months. I need people who are hungry. They're hungry to perform. They're hungry to learn. And then I would say a few other things that I look for is they need to be curious. Marketers have got to be insatiably curious, and they have to be learners because the game is always changing for marketing.
Yeah.
And as soon as you learn how to do something well,
It feels like it's moved on again.
we've moved on, and it can turn off just like that. As soon as we learn how to do Google becomes cookieless, which is a technical term, which means we can no longer get cookies, and now we have to get opt-ins, right? And so we have to figure that out really quick. And so the old play that we used no longer works, and now we have a new play. So they have to be curious, they have to be learners, and they have to be able to build relationships across the business because it used to be, you said it, random acts of marketing. It used to be marketing, marketers were kind of a unique group that kind of did their own thing and operated their own way, and nobody kind of knew what was going on in marketing. Buyers don't see it that way. Buyers don't see it that way. They look from the beginning, the first exposure they have to a business to when they're a customer, and they go, I want to be treated the same way. I want to be talked to the same way. And in order to do that, we have to be able to build relationships with every other team and support them.
It's like every touch point through the business, they want that customers going on a journey through the business, through their entire life with that business.
Yeah.
And they want the same experience at every step of the way. And I think that's where so many business owners just kind of think marketing stops as bringing the lead in and bringing a decent lead in. And then that's the end of it. And wonder why we're not getting case studies or testimonials or raving fans or whatever we want to call it, because it's kind of just come to a grinding halt.
Yeah. And I would say the other thing that is, that I've learned, and what I've tried to build in my business is accountability. If you talk to many marketers, they're afraid of accountability. Sales isn't. They're like, give me my quota, give me my number, so I know what success looks like. Marketers tend to be a little bit cautious when it comes to accountability. They don't want to be held accountable. But the reality is the marketers who want to be held accountable are the ones who want to know what winning looks like. And so we use key performance indicators. We set goals, right?
Yeah.
We know what our department level goals are for marketing qualified leads. And each of my channel owners have a marketing qualified lead goal that ties into that company goal, or that team goal, the department goal, because we know that department goal then ties into the organization's revenue goal. We know how marketing qualified leads is going to equate to more revenue and hitting the revenue numbers we need to hit. And so I'm a big believer in hiring marketers who are accountable and who think a little bit more like a seller than they do a traditional marketer.
And like when you talk about that accountability, and something else I remember you talking about with channels, and I think it goes contrary to the way most business owners think, the most leadership teams think even is kind of to go as wide as they can. Let's
Yeah,
hire people and just get them onto every single channel, from Facebook to LinkedIn to Twitter to whatever.
yeah,
You're very intentional about that, and about having people who are sort of experts on each channel.
yeah.
Um, I'm curious about how you, like, where you would think about starting with that. If you're a smaller business, do you just focus on one or two channels and get really good at that and have
Yeah,
independent or single people working on it?
absolutely. When you're starting, when a company is smaller and they're starting a marketing program, you get very few marketing dollars, right? And you
Yeah,
kind of have to prove yourself before you get more. And I've seen probably more companies than not who give their marketing team a set amount of dollars, right? It could be 100,000, could be $200,000, and they just kind of keep it at that because they don't get the ROI, but they go, we feel like we need to be on Google, so we're just going to kind of fund that. um, it is so critical when you get that first investment that you think through what are some proven channels, right? SEO is a great one, search engine optimization. Some search engine marketing is great, but there's a new one that is a little bit immature, but it's really good. It's intent marketing. You can partner with, we partner with Tech Target and Sixth Sense and Demand Base and a few others, right? And that's been a good channel. But what I always encourage people to do is figure out one channel, figure out one, and do it really well. Because again, you've got a total addressable market. You know what your highly addressable market is, and if you can start getting 1%, right, just 1% of that to start to come in and convert to leads and then to pipeline, you're going to get more dollars. You're going to be able to scale. So you're going to be able to, by the way, self-fund the scaling and the growth of the marketing team, which is so important. You've got to be able to self-fund that through pipeline and revenue. Get really good at one channel. And it's rare where you find a marketer who can be really good at multiple channels. When I have someone working in Google, right?
yeah,
Search engine marketing. I get them certified in Google. If they're working on intent, I get them certified in our intent channels, and that takes a lot of time. If you want to be good at understanding a channel and making sure that it works, it's not just understanding the channel; it's also understanding lead management, lead routing, how those route to teams, how you set other teams up for success. If marketing brings somebody in through intent marketing, you're not going to be successful if you haven't thought about how you're now presenting that to the sales dev rep, so they have context and an understanding about what's going on with the buyer, and so they're thinking through that. It's so important that a marketer is good at one channel and they really get good at it and understand it and build it out for the organization. So I'm just a big believer. Start with one or two and
yeah.
build from there.
And it goes back to what you're saying right at the beginning. Find the person who's got the will, who's teachable, and you can invest in them. They've got the will, the hunger to go out and to learn,
Yeah.
and probably are passionate for a certain channel, whether it's LinkedIn or YouTube or search or whatever it is.
Yeah. And I'm a big believer in something I call R&D.
Yeah,
Most people think of it as research and development. For me, it's rip off and duplicate. There are, I would say from a demand marketing perspective, there are maybe 5% of the companies out there do it really well. Figure out who those 5% are, right? And I buy plane tickets. I will do whatever it takes to get my team in front of those people. We've flown out to Marketo, to Salesforce, to LinkedIn, SalesLoft, Outreach, all of those companies that do demand marketing really well. We don't have to create the wheel.
Yeah.
Somebody else has already created it. And if they will let us get in front of them and learn from them, and we do the same with others, we get a lot of people who come here to learn from us. I'm a big believer that all you have to do is develop that network, get in front of people who have figured it out, and then duplicate what's relevant back at your company. And that's how we've grown at Service Express is we've ripped off and duplicated. Very few ideas have been original ideas. We just haven't had to do it because there have been so many other companies who do it really well that we've been able to get in front of, and they've been givers. They've given to us kind of their best practices.
So you kind of started pushing that flywheel, focused on a handful of channels, started pushing that flywheel, but along the way to get the momentum going, sort of leaned on your partners and
Yeah.
made sure that your people were sponges, so just kind of absorbing whatever they could from partners, putting them on planes, sending them off to see them to get that wheel to spin faster.
Yeah, and by the way, I'm a big believer that 1/3 of learning is either reading a book or getting in front of a partner and learning from them. Another third is then coming back and teaching it. You learn a lot by teaching it back to others.
Yeah.
And then the other third of learning is actually going out and starting to execute and build and learning from that. And so I try and make sure that we incorporate all of that into these kind of R&D sessions. We send somebody or a team out to visit somebody. They learn best practices. They come back. They teach it back to our team. We talk through what does application look like at Service Express, and then we start to build.
And I mean, while all of this is great, and you're investing in people, you're giving them freedom to experiment. You have the RevOps team there to kind of make sure we're keeping the balance. Presumably, you still got very clear priorities for those teams and measurables, and those are set, and everybody's working toward them.
Yes. Yeah. Every individual on the team has goals and KPIs. So, what we don't do is we don't like to manage. I don't like to manage the team's activity, right? Because I can't do that. I shouldn't do that. The team should
Yeah.
be out innovating me. And so what I like to do is I like to make sure we all understand outcomes. We measure team members by outcomes, not activity, right? And so if the team has better, more efficient ways, and they should be constantly, not just out innovating me, but out innovating themselves. They should be able to get to the outcomes in a quicker, smarter, more efficient way as they become better at their job.
I love it. So you basically kind of set, here's the goals, right? You've got the guidelines, but however you get to those goals, if you can get there faster and
Yeah.
do it better, go off and score. So
Yeah, and so what they do is they
love
start,
it.
they don't turn the spigot off like we're changing the wheels on the buses as barreling down the road. What they do is they don't turn off what's working, but they start to experiment with other things, and we will make the investments.
Yeah.
We will invest in the right technology and the right channels, and we'll learn what's working, what's not. And then again, as we start to see success, we start to scale that out.
So as you look forward now to what's coming, I mean, you said earlier, we're an industry that both being in the tech industry and in the marketing industry, which are industries that evolve very, very quickly. How does your team sort of deal with the change that's coming down the line? I mean, we're talking about I think AI just before we jumped on the
Yeah.
call. How do you folks manage the speed of change in the industries
Yeah.
that we operate in?
Yeah, this gets back to humble, hungry, smart. Like I can't push the team, and there are many people. Like you bring people in, and they kind of like butts in seats. They're highly skilled in one area, but you've
Yeah.
got to put them on that curiosity and learning. Like I can't do that. The team gets too big for me to do that. So their job is to again out innovate themselves, constantly reinvent themselves. But we listen. I think the advent of AI, and now we're really looking at AI agents, which are going to absolutely change the game. It's no different than intent marketing was a few years ago. And that's no different than inbound marketing was in
Was
2011 to 2015, right?
yeah.
They're simply new technologies that we just have to learn. And there's ways that teams can get certified on this stuff, or they can take courses on this stuff, or the conferences they can go to learn about this stuff. The important thing is marketers can't sit inside a bubble and just live at a desk. Like, they have to get out and build an outside network of people who are kind of doing this stuff and learning about this stuff. They have to get in, they have to look at some classes, whether it's LinkedIn Learning or many of the technologies, Salesforce.com. They're building AI into the tool, and they provide free courses for
Yeah. All
revenue
these.
operations.
Yeah.
And I just can't believe how many teams don't avail themselves of these free resources. But we need, I need individuals who are looking for the resources, and the individuals who can teach them about that, and they're getting in front of that, and they're taking advantage of that. And there's so many of those resources out there that there's really no excuse not to be able to evolve.
Yeah, like you said, I mean, it's that lifelong learning. You actually have to want to go out there and evolve and to learn every day.
Yeah, and I've learned that's innate. It's very difficult to find someone who is not naturally a learner and make them a learner. I've tried to do it. I've
Yeah.
tried to do it. But I found it is just a lot easier to find the 2 out of 10 people who are natural learners and bring them into the organization, and they're game changers.
How do you pick that up in the interview process? I mean, how do you?
2 ways. Yeah. First of all, the ideal team player, Patrick Lencioni, is a great tool to kind of learn how to find these people. And it will talk about attributes of these people. And so in the interview, I ask lots of questions about how they've developed themselves.
Yeah.
What does personal and professional development look like for them? And I don't settle for a surface level answer. I ask them who their mentors are. I ask them who their network is. I can tell you who mine is. I can give you names of CMOs at companies. I can tell you how often I visit them. I can tell you what groups I'm a part of. I expect the same of marketers. I want to know who their mentors are. I want to know who their network is. I want to know what podcasts they're listening to. I want to know what certifications they have. If they want to come in and be a marketer and they have no certifications, I'm not interested.
Yeah.
So I do that. And then Patrick Lencioni in his book also has reference questions, right? Some questions you can ask references. It's so important to follow up and then ask references.
So I'll make
And
sure
be
to stick that in the show notes because it is a
Yeah,
brilliant book. Yeah.
yeah, and then be very specific about who the references should be. You don't always just accept who the people say. You go, no, no, no. I want somebody from this company where you
Yeah.
work to work in this type of role, right? So, you want to be very specific about the references. But those are a couple of ways.
So going back to where you started for folks listening today, if you were to do this over again,
Mm.
where would you start? And what would you sort of 10 million company listening to you today, and if you had reflected on what you've done over the past few years, where would you start now?
Yeah, no question. If I were to start all over again, one of my biggest learnings was I hired a demand marketer, and we started delivering leads, but we had no one to catch the leads, right? And we had no systems to see what was going on with the leads. So for me, I would make sure I had one demand marketer who was going to focus on one channel, whether it's Google, um, Marketo, or Pardot, which would be kind of marketing automation, intent marketing. If I had to start all over again, I would probably bring in an intent marketer,
Yeah.
and then I would have one operations person, right? You cannot move from campaign driven marketing to systematic marketing if you don't have systems in place, systems that speak to each other and bring teams together. So I would have one person focused on sales and marketing operations, overseeing the technology and the processes and the integration between the systems. And then the
Making that
third,
all work really well together so there's no
yep,
data mess ups
yep,
and yeah,
systematic
no
accountability,
ambiguity.
taking Yep, exactly. And then the third thing I would do is I would have an inbound and outbound sales development rep. Some of them call them BDRs, we call them SDRs, but somebody who can field leads, because we learned early on, if we sent a marketing qualified lead over to the sales team, if they followed up within 5 minutes, they were 850 or 860% more likely to set the meeting. But if we followed up after that, it started to fall off significantly, right? So Moneyball, like you have to know the numbers. I would bring in a sales dev rep who every time they received a lead, they were calling up that lead within just a few minutes and scheduling that meeting for the sales team. So that's where I would start. I would start with one marketer focused on one channel, one operations person, even if the operations component is a part-time gig and they're doing something else later, somebody who owns and is accountable for the operations technology and process, and then one sales development rep.
And then if you can, that sort of rev ops is coming in soon after. So
Yeah,
making sure that we really understand what our total addressable market is, that we bridge the gap between the two, and there's somebody objective in between.
that's exactly right. Yep.
Brilliant. So I thought, so one last question
Yeah.
is around what freedom means to you. So the podcast is the Freedom Experience. It's all about entrepreneurship and entrepreneurs. And
Yeah.
yeah, I realize that you're a CMO, but you're an entrepreneurial CMO. What does the word freedom mean for you?
Freedom to me means operating like an entrepreneur. And I think, by the way, most employees, most people who I work with want to work that same way, where they get to own their business.
Yeah.
They have the freedom to innovate. Again, we talked about the freedom to fail and learn from it, the freedom to develop themselves. Too many people walk into organizations. I see them. We've been a part of private equity companies where I go to other portfolio companies, and you walk through and you get the feeling that these people just feel like they're cogs in a machine. They show up, they spend all of their time dealing in the urgent, not the important, and they don't have the capability of developing themselves. They don't have someone at work who cares about their development and who's developing them. My role as a leader is to provide my people with the freedom to be able to grow personally and professionally.
Yeah, I
I
love that.
really believe that as a leader, that is my job, is to make sure that my people are to flourish and develop and grow because of their employer, not despite their employer. And so my job as a leader is to make sure that my people are always developing. The company can't grow, and the company can't grow if our people aren't growing. And so freedom is working at an organization, I feel like, where you can be an entrepreneur of your own business. You have somebody at work who cares for you and cares about your development. And you have relationships that are inspiring and energizing, and you're surrounded by people who have fire in the belly and
Yeah.
who care about each other and the work that they do.
Where do you spend most of your time then? Is it coaching your team or?
Most of my time is coaching and networking.
Yeah.
To the best of my ability, I'm always getting, because we're a growth organization. I can't be the same CMO for a $1 billion company that I am for a $350 million company. And my team can't grow if I'm not growing. So a big part of my time is getting in front of other chief marketing officers, learning from them, developing relationships with them. And then the other big part of my time is developing my team. And part of that development is not just me developing them, although I do a lot of that. Part of the development is plugging them into other companies or individuals who are doing really cool things. And I have the good fortune of being able to develop relationships with them. And I can bring people along and plug them in and help them see what's working outside of Service Express. So I spend a big part of my time there as well.
Cool. Love it. Are you reading anything interesting at the moment?
Yeah, you know, there's I'm trying to think of there was a book that I just read. What's the name of it? First of all, Lencioni stuff is great.
Like always, yeah.
We just went through the five working geniuses, and so
Okay. Six
again,
working geniuses, the whole, yeah.
is it
Six.
six?
Yeah.
Yeah,
If you just,
six.
yeah, it's
So
brilliant. Like,
so
where's
I
your
read
energy coming from?
Yeah, I took the entire team through that, and that was
Nice.
fantastic. We just did the Energy Bus by John Gordon,
Okay.
which is a kind of a fable like Lencioni, and it talks about the importance of the energy we bring to work, identifying energy vampires, and making sure we've got the right team with us. So uh, that was a fantastic book. Yeah, those are a couple that I've read recently.
Brilliant.
You know, the other one I recently read was The Ride of a Lifetime, which I don't know if you've heard of it, but it's
I don't think I've read it yet. No.
is it Bob Iger, who was the former
Yes.
CEO at Disney, is basically an autobiography that he had written. I find that there's so many. I learned so much from biographies and
Yeah.
history biographies in particular, and there was just some great material there. And then the one other is The $1 Trillion Coach was fantastic as well.
Brilliant, isn't it? Yeah, I
Yeah,
love that one as well. It's so
yeah,
important for coaching the team. That's why, yeah, I was wondering if how much of your time you spent on that with your team, and I just got
yeah,
the sense that that was a big part of your role.
yeah.
Brilliant, Josh. It's been fantastic speaking to you. Thanks very much for your time.